Thank you very much. If we could get everybody's attention, please. We're going to call this to order at what it looks like 1:02. I can, oh, it's 1 o'clock right on. That clock is wrong then. All right, it's 1 o'clock even. We'll start at 1 o'clock. I can confirm that we have quorum, combination of here present in the room and also by Zoom. I would also confirm that the CAO, the clerk, and other members of our senior management team and our staff are present and available if we need to hear from them. I would like to start by reading the Land Acknowledgement Statement. I want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Okay, a little more of administrative stuff that I want to touch on. There is a public notice to be read here. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. We, as we always do, asked for public input on this agenda at our email address tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. And this time around, we did not receive any feedback or any request for any questions or comments. I would notice, or also notify that there is a supplementary agenda that was posted in the last couple of days. It was issued to add item 6A, public comment. It will be a presentation from Teri Ledger, who is agent to the Jack and Stella file regarding agenda item number 9, report plan 2025-011, cash in lieu of parking, CP-02/24, Jack and Stella Limited. With permission of all on council, I think it would be most useful to hold off on that presentation until such time as we've heard from our planning staff on that matter, so that they can fit nicely together. Should be in the first few minutes of the file, so it's not a long wait. And at that point in time, our next thing I want to do is ask if anybody has a pecuniary interest that has become obvious to them from the agenda or from the discussion around this meeting. I'm not seeing any on the screen. I'm not seeing any in the room. So we will go ahead on the basis that we do not have any. However, if something comes up and makes it obvious that you should have or wished you had declared, please speak up as soon as you're aware of it. Last couple of items by explanation. Number 1, motions. The motions that we read will have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders, just simply done to expedite this meeting. And number 2, on voting, members shall physically raise their hand until their vote has been confirmed by me. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, but in those circumstances, it will not be considered a recorded vote. Okay. So we'll move on to public comments. We've deferred a little bit. We've got consent agenda. We'll talk to that issue first. We have a consent agenda with 3 items on it. I have a resolution that I will read. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the January 15, 2025 consent agenda, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number 1, December 11, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 through 5. Number 2, December 11, 2024 Council minutes. And number 3, December 12, 2024 Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 6. Does anybody have any comments on any of those items listed in the consent agenda? No questions, any comments? I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. There we go. Okay, the first item of business that we will discuss is the Jack and Stella Limited file. I believe there's a couple of issues that we need to hear about. Ms. Crowder, you're going to join us at the podium, if you would, please.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Kelley, and good afternoon, members of council. Happy New Year. As council may recall, cash in lieu of parking application CP0224 in the name of Jack and Stella Limited was last heard by Planning Committee on December 11th, where Planning Committee decided to defer the application in order to provide time for staff to properly review the flood impact review memo provided by Pinestone Engineering Limited, dated December 6, 2024. A revised memo was subsequently provided on January 6, 2025 to address staff's questions regarding wave uprush and access. Staff recommend that the application be approved, provided a cash in lieu of parking agreement is entered into, wherein the owner agrees to implement the recommendations made within the Pinestone memo dated January 6, 2025. The staff report before council also recommends that the owner agree to construct the addition on piers, as it was staff's understanding at the time of writing that this was what the intent of the owner was based on the drawings that were provided to staff. However, we have heard from the applicant's agent that they would like the option to construct the addition on a foundation, should the chief building official be agreeable. Given that Lake Muskoka is considered to be a small inland lake, the proposed addition is technically located outside of the floodplain limits of the water body. We have also heard from the chief building official that a foundation design may be possible from a building code perspective. Provided the applicant agrees to incorporate floodproofing measures to address the wave uprush component, staff are amenable to striking the requirement for piers from the resolution. Staff have no further comments, but are happy to assist council with any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Crowder. Does anyone have any questions? Someone have any cough medicine? I see no, Councillor Zavitz, have you got your hand up? No, that's a fireplace. Never mind. Sorry. Thank you. All right. I see no questions. We're going to call on Ms. Ledger to join us and offer up her comments as well. Happy New Year and welcome.
Happy New Year. Thank you. And it's morning here, but good afternoon, Mayor Kelley, council and staff. I'm Teri Ledger, Teri Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Fort Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. And I just wanted to delegate to address the conditions as outlined by Ms. Crowder. I'd like to thank staff for reaching out before the meeting, and I believe we've come to an agreement on this. And my request was merely to strike those words from the conditions for piers. It's limiting things. I think the construction is best addressed by the building department and our CBO. So I appreciate that, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I have a resolution. I'm just going to quickly confirm. It's a resolution and then the amendment changes the, okay, good. Okay, so I'll read the first resolution, which was before the recommendation was made to strike part of the language. So we'll amend that subsequently. This one is moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that cash in lieu of parking application CP-02/24, Jack and Stella Limited, be approved, and that a cash in lieu of parking agreement for required parking spaces be entered into between the Township of Muskoka Lakes and Jack and Stella Limited, and that the cash in lieu of parking agreement shall include the construction design recommendations contained within section 7.0 of the Pinestone Technical Memo dated January the 6th, 2025, and that the addition be located on piers, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute all necessary documentation. Councillor Nishikawa, you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, through you, and I'm not sure who can answer this, but I raised a concern in the past, and I'm not sure how we could address it. in this agreement, could it be said that employees should not pick up our limited spaces right in front of their business? So I don't know how, like, we only have like 10 spaces there and 2 of them are accessible. So again, when it has been a complaint in general that employees are using those spaces and not for the traveling public, and so can we do that in an agreement?
Thank you for the question. Does anyone want to? Oh, there we go. Sir, welcome. Go ahead, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon and Happy New Year. I don't see an issue with that, provided the applicant would it be amenable to, a provision just stating that the employee vehicles, that they agree not to. Well, I guess I'd have to put thought into how that would work, but there may be some wording that we could use. Perhaps it may be best to actually speak with Ms. Ledger for her to chime in with her thoughts. Just with respect to where currently employees park, that might be the best option, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Sorry. Ms. Ledger, you were invited if you wish to make a comment.
Thank you. Yes, I will note that their staff housing is within walking distance of the store. And generally speaking, I would say as a business owner that it's in the business's best interest that staff isn't taking up parking spots for customers. So I think I would hope that would happen anyway. And I don't see any reason why the owners wouldn't, be in favor of that. But I'm not sure that it's really necessary, and it just may add some more clutter to what's going on here with the agreement.
Thank you for that. CEO Pink, I think you had your hand up and I missed it.
No problem. Thank you, through you. I think, well-intentioned agreements when they're agreed to by the municipality and the other parties can work in an ideal world, but I think council should also be cognizant that should the agreement not be complied with, the challenges that bylaw enforcement might intercome in enforcing such an agreement. I think council just needs to be cognizant of that in their decision making. We may be inundated with phone calls that so-and-so is parking in a spot they shouldn't be. It's very difficult for staff to follow up, investigate that sort of thing and take action, and it can consume a lot of staff time. So again, I don't mean that to be an impediment or a prohibition on pursuing this, but I think it's something we want to be careful of when we enter into agreements. There's, again, I think you want to make sure that you can enforce them. Otherwise, they certainly reduce their impact or point. Thank you.
Councilor Nishikawa?
Would we do an ask? I'm just leaving it as that. Just an ask. Like in the recommendation. That's all.
Anyone have a comment on that? Mr. Sharp?
If I'm following correctly, I think the ask may be to include a provision within the agreement itself that would state that the owners agree not to utilize public parking spaces in proximity to their property for employee parking. But like Mr. Pink correctly pointed out, it would ultimately become an enforcement matter and a matter of us enforcing that agreement. So it's ultimately, the will of council at this point with respect to what you wish to do. Thank you.
Sorry,
Councilor Nishikawa, I'll give you one more on it.
I didn't word it correctly. It was a friendly letter, not anything to do at this point. I just think that any opportunity we can get messages out to businesses to say, do better with your employee parking. So I'm just saying, so let's just do it at that. We don't have to put anything into the bylaw.
I think that's a fair comment. I see Ms. Ledger, your hand is up again. Do you want to follow that up?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I'd be happy to convey that information to the owners.
Thank you. I think the best answer here is that anybody who's running a retail operation and does not keep spaces open for their customers doesn't run much of a business. So I think that's kind of a hallmark of a successful retail or customers, any kind of food services business. I think a reminder is helpful, but I don't think we need to go back and change anything in the guts of the agreement. Anyone with any other comments or questions? I've read it, right? So I'm going to read the amendment next. Sorry. So I'll read the amendment. There is an amendment to what I've already read. This one's moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the following be struck out of the third paragraph of the resolution, and that the addition be located on piers. Any questions on that? I'm going to vote on this first. All right, we'll vote on the amendment first. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And before we forget which one we're talking about, we're going to, now we're, sorry. Thank you very much. That one carried. Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. So thanks everybody for that. Thank you, Ms. Ledger. Okay. Do we have anybody to repair whatever he broke? All right. Next up, Mr. Moore, I think you're speaking on the Milford Bay circumstance or situation.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. The last project as part of the 2024 capital budget was the upgrades to the Milford Bay Community Centre HVAC system. We worked with the engineers to complete the design and issued the tender document. We've completed that tender process and received 2 bids. Those can be found within the staff report. The lowest bid received was approximately $700,000. Unfortunately, for this project, we budgeted only $400,000. Recognizing that we are well over the project budget, staff took the time to review all options to help direct a path forward in regards to this. Ultimately, staff are recommending that for the time being, we defer the project, allowing the opportunity to reevaluate some of the alternative heating systems and the grant funding that possibly comes along with those, at which time, upon the conclusion of those, we can report back to Council with our findings. The 3 main reasons why we came to that conclusion, one being the associated grants with more greener heating options such as air source heat pumps. Understanding now that the propane, the cost difference between the propane boiler system and the air source heat pumps isn't as great as we once thought. The addition of some grants could certainly make that gap more manageable. Secondly, in 2025, we plan to conduct building condition assessments on our community centers. It would be prudent to kind of do that due diligence work on a building, understanding if there's any other underlying issues with it before making such a large investment into the long-term function of that facility. And third, since staff were directed to proceed with the propane boiler system, we've since worked on 2 climate change plans, one being the conservation and demand management plan, and the second one currently in review but getting close is the climate mitigation plan. And within both of those plans, the baseline data shows that the Milford Bay Community Centre is certainly our biggest greenhouse gas emitter among our community centres, in large part due to the current oil system and the lack of efficiency within the building and the system itself. Those plans identify, in particular, the climate mitigation plan identifies the Milford Bay Community Centre as one of the short-term initiatives looking at some more greenhouse gas friendly heating options. With that, Chair, staff are available to answer any questions. Thank you, sir.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Moore? I'm going to screw this up. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Mr. Moore. Can you remind us like the risks that were considered about waiting? Were there any significant risks that we'd have to mitigate?
Yes, there's certainly risks. The current system is old and dated, and it's reached already the end of its useful life. Now, in saying that, it is still working and operating. The building at least isn't closed and not being heated. So there is always potential that those systems may fail, but at the current stage, that isn't the case. So that's why I think staff are recommending this approach. If we have a little bit of time, maybe it's best that we try to take it and utilize it.
You have a follow-up? Councillor
Yes,
Roberts?
thank you. And the subject, as you're aware, that building has no insulation in the walls. It's a block structure and very cold, hard to heat. Will your exercise of looking at this also entertain maybe possible future things that can be done to insulate that building?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest reasons for wanting to conduct those building condition assessments. The ability to look at all those other issues associated with the building, develop a proper 10-year capital plan, make sure it's wise to make these large investments in the building, recognizing that, there's a need to keep it operating for future years. And we can certainly, at that point, reevaluate the project as a whole. And perhaps it's more cost beneficial to tie in multiple kind of upgrades at once. If you're going to be looking at closing the facility for a short period of time, et cetera, to complete those. So there could be potentially some cost savings overall if you're tying in multiple, but we need to conduct those building condition assessments first to know if there is any. So.
Thank you. I have two more hands. Councillor Zabitz, you're first, and then Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you, certainly to you, Corey. I guess the Milford Bay Community Center is our largest community center, as I understand it. As I read the numbers, there's Milford Bay, then Port Carling, Bala, number 3 in terms of numbers, in terms of physical size. I guess where I'm going with that, Corey, can you speak to the community center usage in Milford Bay? There's a downstairs and an upstairs, which the numbers are something like 150 capacity downstairs and 300, let's say, upstairs. Is that building used in that sort of a manner? And I guess where I'm going a bit to where you started with was the whole sense of reviewing our community centers in terms of their functionality, where they are, the structure, the viability, et cetera, which you're going to be embarking on shortly. Is the Milford Bay building often saddled with 500 people in it, or is it often used sort of directionally inside the building? Or are people either upstairs, or are some people downstairs? Or I'm just wondering in terms of the need for some of the systems that we're contemplating there.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair.
I have a secondary.
Yeah, in terms of the usage of the building, I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but I can tell you off the top of my head, it's our most utilized community center that we have in the township. I would be pretty confident in saying that I would believe throughout the course of the year, it probably has something going on every day. So it's certainly our most utilized center all year round. So I think as identified in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, it's certainly one of the 4 hubs that we see being around for a long time from a usage standpoint. The building condition assessments are going to look at it more from a capital building facility standpoint, just understanding the costs there. But from a usage perspective, yeah, there's certainly demand there to warrant the existence of it.
Councillor Zabitz, you had a supplemental?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you for that. To you, Corey, I wonder if you could share the experience that's about to occur in Bala as it relates to the heat system there, just for, I think just for a parallel, because I am going somewhere with this.
Mhm. Through you, Chair, included in the 2025 capital budget was the replacement of the oil heating furnace at the Bala Community Center with a propane furnace. The difference between the two facilities and the reasoning for such an upgrade in Milford Bay is really due to the size of the building itself. So the Milford Bay Community Center is much larger, can hold more, has multiple floors and levels. The Bala Community Center has a little bit more to the system itself in terms of proper ductwork, insulation, etc., which don't. I think if you're trying to relate them to each other, those would be the main differences between them and the need for this here versus Bala at the
Thank you.
time.
If we might, Mayor? To that,
Sir, yes.
if I may, so to that point, it's in our 2025 budget for $15,000. That's the actual, removal and replacement with an electric furnace, including taking the tanks out of the basement and putting propane outside. Point being, it's hard for me to square up a $15,000, if you will, a need to have up-to-date heating systems, reliable systems in our facilities. And then we look at something that, uses words like scope creep in the report, and it's in the north part of $1.2 million, which I am very much a fan of this report that our department is about to embark on, where we really look at the facilities and make some hard decisions, because there's no relevancy between a $15,000 heat source and a $1.2 million heat source, where one building holds 228 people and the other holds 400.
Okay, thank you for that. I didn't hear a question, so I'm going to go to Councilor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you, I was just confirming, we are in questions, right? Not comments? I just want to make sure. There is a resolution, correct? Okay, good. Noting the building condition assessments that are coming up, I think the second part, or the last sentence in there, is the most important, which is, if we take our time and do this correctly, is essentially what you're suggesting in this report. You mentioned the hub location as being the built form. Going back to the Parks and Rec master plan, I do believe that this campus was something that was also going to be looked at as a whole. Is that something that is earmarked in the near future as well then?
Yes, through you, Chair, it is. So also included in the 2025 capital budget was funding for part one of the site fit plans. And those were identified, those locations were identified through the Parks and Trails Standards Manual. So the Milford Bay Community Center property being one of those, yes.
So
You have a supplemental?
I do. And then I have another question, if I could, a supplemental now to that, and then, okay,
ahead,
a few questions here. Is consideration of other buildings being included on site plan? Is that part of this possibility then?
I would say yes, I would think so. Yep, I think we should look at it as a whole, definitely.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had, I did go back and look at the climate plan, albeit it's a lofty one. In there, is there like a proven track record or like of the technology as we explore different pieces of technology to be added in the conditions that we have here in Muskoka? So this winter is a great example of wanting to be sure that whatever new technology we are considering, that it is robust enough. Is that included in the, I couldn't see it in the climate change, but I suspect it probably is there.
Through you, Chair, it is.
Okay.
When we evaluated the four, if you recall, the four different alternatives for this building with the engineers, within those alternative heating systems, such as the air source heat pump, within that project scope does include kind of those backup sources of heat for when they are required, right? So when the temperatures get below a certain temperature, but the air source heat pump requires backup support from, they would then kick on. The pricing is included with those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Two things. First of all, I can't remember how we started out. And is there a resolution? I thought it was just a report from committee, from staff.
No, there's a resolution.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I want to stay on track. And no, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say Torrance, Walker's Point, but it's not part of the resolution, I'm sure. So let's stay on track.
All right, and unless there's another question on Milford Bay, and I am not seeing any, I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that council not award tender T-2024-12 and that council defer project 24163-Milford Bay Community Center mechanical system upgrades and that staff be authorized to reevaluate alternate heating sources and explore grant funding opportunities as highlighted in report OS-2025-001 and return to council with a further staff report. Any questions on the resolution? Okay, a comment. Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you, and I'd just like to commend staff for coming through with a courageous recommendation to take a step back and to take a look at things and do it properly. There's a lot of things that have happened in this space, building wrapping. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we can do. We should be doing each one of these things right the first time. It may cost a little more in the upfront, but the total cost, which is something that municipalities have not done well in the past. I'm hoping that we're there, that the total cost of operation for a building over its 50 years lifespan is something that we start to look at. So I commend staff for having the courage to step back to do the right thing. Well done.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Councillor McIntyre.
Just brief, which is basically just following along with Councillor Burry. This was a decision that really weighed upon me at the time that we made it. And the fact that we can go back and reevaluate and do something good for our world, I think is pretty exciting, and I'm fully supportive.
Thank you for that. Okay, I will call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next one up, I think, is Chief Morrell. Are you speaking to the CEMC matter? Sorry, you're the CEMC, the grant approval matter. Take your time, the clock is ticking.
Good afternoon, Council. Sorry that I'm a little delayed there. I think I'm throwing the timing off for the mayor, so I don't want to do that.
I sense there's a bit of that going on.
Before you is a report that speaks to a grant that the fire department was lucky enough to receive from the province of Ontario. The province of Ontario has developed what they call the Fire Protection Grant. This is a $30 million fund that comes through the Solicitor General's office and will be delivered in 3 successive years. Year 1 of the grant we applied for and we received approval for funding for $82,000. I should note for council in this room that this is the most amount that any fire service in Muskoka will receive due to the fact that we receive the money based on how many fire stations you have. So it's $8,200 per fire station, which is $82,000. In the recommendation, we are asking that council allow us to approve the grant through the clerk and through the mayor. And if council so wishes to read the details of the grant, it references a second set of bunker gear, which was a referenced item in our fire master plan. I now stand for questions.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have, Councillor Nishikawa, you have a question?
Sorry, and if through you to Mark. Hello. Anyhow, I had thought that within the budget that there was gear.
So through you, your worship, good afternoon, everyone. So there is in the budget an allocation for 20 sets of bunker gear. As the fire chief alluded to in the fire master plan, there is a progression to increase the amount of gear that we have per fire service member. And this would contribute to escalating or advancing how quickly we get to that increased number of gear per service member. And I'm happy to have the chief add to anything that I just commented on.
Thank you for that. Oh, we're good. Anyone with another question? Seeing none, I'll read a resolution. Okay, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that council receive the fire protection grant and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary documents to receive the funding. And that capital project 25002 in the 2025 capital budget be increased by $82,300. And that the fire chief be authorized to prepare a tender for a total of 50 sets of bunker gear. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we're down to bylaws. We just do this one. No. Okay, here we go. We've got a few things here. All right, first one is up. There's no report on this one. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zabitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-003 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, bracket Christie, roll number 6-27-020, be ready first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. And then I'm going to read none more. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-003 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Christie, roll number 6-27-020, be ready third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you. Next one up is a resolution moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-004 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Otto, roll number 4-26-005, be ready first and second time. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And on that same matter, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be resolved that bylaw 2025-004 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Otto, roll number 4-26-005, be ready third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Oh, right. Next up, no presentation on this one, right? Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-100 to designate site plan control, part of lots 32 and 33, concession 2, more particularly described as parts 1 to 6, plan 35R-23576, parts 2 and 4 to 11, and 22 and 24, plan 35R-21995, and parts 1 to 5 and 9 and 17, plan 35R-22610, Cardwell, 215-9670 Ontario Inc. and Goldhar, roll numbers 1 through 5, roll numbers 1-3-051 and 1-3-052, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next one is moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-010 to designate site plan control, Island Duck, Medora, Christie, roll number 6-27-020, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next one is moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-001 being a bylaw to borrow, if necessary, to meet current expenditures for 2025 for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next is moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-002, being a bylaw to authorize the levy and collection of interim taxes on all properties and property classes, to establish the dates for payment of taxes and to provide for the charge of penalties and interest for the non-payment of the same, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Just keep on coming. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-005, being a bylaw to appoint a bylaw enforcement officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Next one is moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-006, being a bylaw to assign a property standards officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. That's all right. It's over. Next one is moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-009, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-109, a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes with respect to fees applied for fire apparatus activities, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? Oh, sorry. There was a question.
Yeah.
What do we do? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. My question was very simple. As it relates to public events and different items like that, where as a matter of course, one is required to have, you know, a fire involved, et cetera, the township in some way, shape, or form. Are the fees have traditionally been waived? Is this something that is ingrained in this new document, or is this going to always have to come back to council for discussion in terms of those costs?
Who's going to take that one? Chief
Through
Morrell?
you, I assume this is about the special events.
It is.
Permitting process. So we would evaluate that case by case, and in some cases, we use them as training opportunities. So there have been instances where we've attended an event on the water, and we've used that as a training opportunity for our folks. So oftentimes, we'll use it as a public education event and a training opportunity to engage with the public, and there's no costs that are associated with that. I hope that answers the question through you.
That answer your question, Councillor Zavitz?
If I might, thank you for that answer. We can't state unequivocally that though, that Santa Claus parade or some other regional weekend event would be exempt from charges from fire? I mean,
Director Donaldson. Sorry, I'm going to ask Director Donaldson to take that one.
I just, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to answer the question I think originally that was asked. So the only change to this bylaw is with respect to the hourly rate or the rate that's being applied for fire apparatus as prescribed by the MTO. We've not changed anything else with respect to special events or anything in this bylaw amendment.
Great, thank you.
Okay. We did have a vote. It carried. We'll mark it as carried, and we did answer the question. I have one more, at least one more. Okay. This one is moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that council in closed session convene at 1:45 p.m. for a 2-minute discussion, for a exemption, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, Section 239 sub 2 sub E of the Municipal Act 2001, and that's as related in confidential report CCS 2025-01. All in favor? Thank you. So we will turn off the knobs and